is your favorite Sunday morning weekly news analysis program. That's Media Monitor. I'm your host, Alicia Jali. Thank you so much for choosing us as we unpack the news that made it to everyone's lips this week. Here's what we have in store for you this morning. We're going to start by looking at the state of media transformation in the country. We'll also delve into the so-called Pravin Gordhan saga. We check out the reactions on Pityana's call for President Jacob Zuma to step down. And of course, Johannesburg elected its new mayor on Monday in a session that was characterized by unprecedented drama. But first, as always, it's 900 hours. These are the top and leading news. Gauteng residents should brace themselves for impending water restrictions. Members of the Bapalani community in the northwest are divided over mining royalties. In some sporting action there, Chippa United marched into the semi-finals of the MTN 8 with a dominant 2-0 win over Platinum Stars at the Royal Bafokeng Sports Palace yesterday. As you know, we're still celebrating Women's Month, and of course I'm joined by another pair of outstanding women this morning. I'm very pleased to be joined by political analyst Nompumelelo Runji here in our studios in Johannesburg. Nompumelelo, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Happy Women's Month for the rest of it.
Thank you so much, Alicia. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. And of course, in our Durban studio, I'm very pleased to welcome political analyst Umar Precious Lukayeni. Ma'am Precious, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much. A happy Women's Month for what is left of it.
Good morning, Alicia.
Thank you so much. Well, let's have a quick look now at the big hashtags of the week. As you would know, these were some of the stories that captured social media interest. And of course, we started by that story, the Oscar case. As you know, the state did go and appeal that 6-year sentence. But Judge Masipa's rejection of the state's leave to appeal Oscar's 6-year sentence has set tongues wagging on social media platforms. Let's take a look at some of the tweets before I engage with you, Nompumelelo. Sanity Chick says it is a cold comfort knowing Judge Masipa has no further role to play in the hashtag Oscar Pistorius sentencing. Joy Perry says hashtag Judge Masipa appeals focus solely on hashtag Oscar Pistorius and should be more concerned about hashtag justice for River Steenkamp. Well, some mixed reviews there. James Roberts says, I fully respect and salute hashtag Judge Masipa's decisions throughout this hashtag Oscar Pistorius trial and cases. It's time for everyone to accept. Nompumelelo, what did you make of this though? Well, mixed reviews on social media.
Yeah, the perception has been throughout the case that Judge Masipa has been overly sympathetic towards Oscar Pistorius. And I suppose for a lot of people, the expectation was that she would give the states the leave to appeal, as she did previously, you know, for the verdict. But she stood her ground again, and she truly does believe that the case is gone as far as it can, and we'll just have to wait and see what the state decides to do. I think that she was brave in a sense because she has been criticized widely ever since she gave the sentence in the first place. So a lot of people thought perhaps she would succumb again to that and allow herself to be scrutinized again by another court. But clearly she really feels that she has done the right thing. And of course the defense did argue that effectively Oscar Pistorius will have spent 8 years, will have served an 8-year sentence given the 1 year that he spent in jail and the 1 year he spent on house arrest, and they feel that that's sufficient. So I guess there'll be many mixed feelings on this issue. It's very emotive for a lot of people. It's about, you know, women and the fact that women abuse and femicide is not taken seriously in this country. So it will get tongues wagging for the longest of times. I think even after. Even when he gets out of jail, I suppose we'll still be talking about it.
You know what I like? Somebody said there on one of our tweets is saying that, you know, it is time that we all accepted that, you know, this case is done and dusted for. But let's look at other news that made it big on our social media trends this week. Of course, the hashtag public protector. Bosisi Mkhwebane has emerged as a sole candidate to take over the public protector role from Thulima Donsela in October. Social media was abuzz with well wishes for the public protector protector frontrunner. Here are some of the messages that came through. Couch Olympian says, let me also prematurely congratulate Mayor #Busisiwe Mkhwebane on the imminent appointment of her being touted as the next #public protector RSA. And of course, Pileti Sebola says, congratulations are in order for the nomination and recommendation of Busisiwe Mkhwebane for the public protector job in Mzansi. And Mkhululeko Mhlengwa says, Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane has my vote next week as the new public protector, wishing her well in the execution of her duties. Mom Precious, what did you think about this week's deliberation, particularly around Busisiwe Mkhwebane?
Is he talking to me? I think Busisiwe Mkhwebane is an appropriate appointment, Alicia, and all we can do is to congratulate her. But besides congratulating her, we must congratulate Makosi Khoza for chairing that selection so professionally. She has done all of us proud. I think Busisiwe Mkhwebane needs to be given a chance. However, she is filling in big shoes. We hope she will be able to play to the challenge.
Big shoes to fill. Nompumela, what did you make of it?
I think what was amazing is that she emerged as a consensus candidate, meaning the bulk of the committee actually agreed on Busisiwe as the public protector
That was
nominee,
refreshing
which was
to
very
know.
refreshing, except for one opposition from the DA,
yes,
which I think that the EFF Malema dealt with very succinctly by saying that, even if President Zuma likes her or favors her, it makes no difference because she's going to serve beyond President Zuma's term, which I think that it was a good argument to make. Secondly, what's really great again is that we have another black woman filling such big shoes, which I think is fantastic for our transformative project in this country. And then again, what is wonderful again is that she's not just a black woman, but she is a qualified black woman who has the merit, who has the experience, and she's come through this process. And I think we should look forward to another interesting 7 years under Busisiwe. That's if, of course, her nomination is sealed. Yes.
Absolutely. Let's have a look now at more news that made it to our social media trends. And of course, it was the biggest news this week. We all know the Harare riots that have now turned violence. And of course, we've seen police clashing with the protesters there. And the UN has also reacted, saying that the Zimbabwean government should respect the right to peaceful protest. Let's have a look at some of the tweets there. Dr. Tumi says, cry my beloved, #Zimbabwe. God bless Zimbabwe, says at UN, at Human Rights. Do you want to wait for people to die first before you take action? Act not on #Zimbabwe. And of course, Mishek Mugabe says at Zwelinzima at #Zimbabwe, it's sad that we no longer have hope for opportunities. Under the regime, we will continue fighting for freedom. Mom Precious, I mean, what did you make of the happenings in Zimbabwe this week?
The happenings in Zimbabwe, Alicia, for me are interesting in the sense that those are members of civil society who say they cannot take the ZANU-PF anymore. They need President Mugabe to step down. But also what is interesting about and worrying about those protests is that the police are waiting around those people with sticks, meaning that the police are ready to beat them. I mean, in South Africa, at least we don't do that. Because that protest was legal, it was allowed by their system there. But the presence of huge police contingents actually made those people cancel that protest, which is worrying.
Nompumelele, quick one.
Yes, it's worrying for the rule of law in that country, and I think that SADC needs to pay very close attention to what's going on there before it escalates into something that is more grievous and more worrying than what it is currently.
And if we remember, I mean, a lot of people would remember that these protests started as a gathering through social media. So we will be bringing you up to speed with what is currently happening in Zimbabwe. We're going to take a quick ad break. And after that, we're going to zoom into theories around the Gordhan saga, amongst others. Do stay with us. This is Media Monitor.
for Pile, giving up was no option even in times of need.
If it wasn't for the opportunity that was given to me by the taxi owner, late Mr. Sibego, maybe I wouldn't be where I am.
The taxi industry is also occupied by people with a vision.
There are quite a few taxi drivers with at least matric. And they had a next door neighbor who owned taxis and they asked him for a job.
He now owns a law firm and he believes that challenges are meant to be conquered.
Once you step on top of them, you are able to be on another level and they remain under your feet.
He says hard work granted him his dream of becoming a lawyer of note.
I don't really believe in miracles. People work.
Join Puleng Mulibati every Friday at 17:30.
Back to Media Monitor. Now, in this segment, I'm very pleased to be joined by Mr. Ndiboa Norman Mujelere, Acting DG of the Department of Communications. Sir, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us on Media Monitor.
A very good morning to you, Alicia, and the viewers at home.
Thank you so much. Well, transformation and ownership in the print media came under the spotlight during a two-day media transformation, accountability and diversity colloquium hosted by Minister of Communications, Faith Mutambi. Among other things, the colloquium was highlighting the need for demographics representative in print media. So, I mean, do tell us what necessitated this conference. Take us through the deliberations at this particular conference.
Now, let me start by thanking the SABC for giving us the opportunity to be here this morning. What necessitated this two-day colloquium on print media transformation is the fact that there's been debate for over time now regarding transformation-related matters in the print media. So we felt, I think we need, as a department, listen to the views and get all the stakeholders so that we can converse and get the thinking that is out there from our stakeholders, so that we can be able to inform our policy-making process, because we believe that there is a need for us to begin to look at the policy-related matters in the print space. And for that matter, we call the two-day print media, where the minister was to engage all the stakeholders, be it from government departments, our stakeholders in terms of the organized civil society, journalists and all of those. So those were in the print media space and so on. It was quite a success.
Nompumelelo, do you think that it was about time that such a colloquium was held?
I think there is a need for broad discussion about media transformation in general in this country, and particularly because there seems to be this perception that especially print media and government are antagonists as opposed to two groups serving a specific purpose. So I think an ongoing conversation between the Department of Communication, government that is, and the media itself and civil society is important. So we can get a sense that there's a sense of cooperation and the role of each party in society is being respected and being seen for its importance.
Did you maybe just elaborate for us there? I mean, when you talk about media transformation, what exactly are you talking about here? Are you talking content, human resources, ownership, or everything in one umbrella?
No, the approach we have taken as a department, I'm an economist. Let me just say that. An economist always think in two hands all the time. There's always this hand which is the supply.
Yes.
And there's always this hand which is the demand. And I think our view as a department is that when we look at issues of transformation in the media, we must look at the totality of the issues, both from the side of the print, both from the side of the supply and also from the side of demand. It's not only the fact that we are only focused on the issues relating to content, but we must be able to say, what does it take to have that content to the public out there? So it requires a number of things. You require to invest in capital, capital infrastructure. You must invest in, you must have the ink, you must have the people who must do it. So we're looking at the entire value chain up to a point where a newspaper reaches me at home, as it were. So we're looking at the entire value chain this time around. It's not only about the softer issues, which is only on the news, as it were. We're looking at matters around the printing press. Where do we print all of these things? And what are the things that are used to print the distribution thereof? For example, in the community media, you don't always find them in the mainstream or in the retail space, for that matter. For example, like where I come from, there's just as an example, there's a ShopRite shop, but you don't find a community media in my village there. So we have to look at the whole value chain so that we can be able to say what are the interventions that we need to put in place in each and every value chain, not just a blanket approach, as it were. That's also looking at the issue around how do we ensure that we have got balanced reporting that must happen to reflect on the issues as they come out to the public. Remember, the role of the media is to inform the public,
absolutely,
educate the public, and I think we must be able to say we must do that in a more responsible way.
To both of you now, I just want to find out, I mean, in your view, why do you think the print media is still lagging behind in terms of transformation? Maybe let's start with that.
I think the DJ touched on something very important, and that's the capital, investment that's required to actually do an enterprise such as a newspaper. It's not cheap at all. So in terms of giving people access to that space, it's very, very difficult, especially for smaller papers, like you mentioned, community papers that carry real stories of what communities are going through. But we hardly get those stories out because they don't have the capital to actually put themselves out there nationally, etc. The other thing that I think is very important when it comes to the issue of media transformation is not only to look at just the journalism and the content, as he said, but also the ownership. How do we make ownership of the print space more accessible to previously disadvantaged people? And again, the capital cost comes in, but there's also issues of skills. How are such enterprises managed? For instance, do we need to train people specifically for that purpose? Should there be partnerships between government and young people who wish to enter the print space, for instance? Should there be more initiatives around that? Because you've got young people who are creative, who want to get into the space, but who lack the skill, who lack the knowledge, who lack the capital and the funding. Then, of course, there's the issue of journalism, the quality of journalism in our country. There's been a wide debate about the fact that we're having a declining standard of journalism. Our reporters are not getting deeper into stories, they're not getting the full facts, etc. So many corrections are made, more often than not lately when it comes to specific stories. So we need to get into that as well. What's happening at universities and training facilities and colleges, whatever, when it comes to the training of journalists, and what's happening in the newsrooms as well. There have been lots of debates we've seen of journalists who are pitted against their editors, for instance, over policies. It's not just at the SABC, it's across the board. So those things have to be looked at in the broader spectrum of transformation.
You bring in such very interesting issues here, DG, and I want you to also elaborate, because my next point was the fact that you did call for a plurality of voices. How do we then achieve that? I mean, we just spoke about community papers not necessarily reaching the market that they should.
Alicia, as I indicated, and I think I really appreciate what my colleague is saying, that I think the seed we want to implant to the South Africans is that let's look at the totality of the problem.
Absolutely.
So that we can have a total solution to the problem, not just a piecemeal approach. And as you're saying, issues of skills development, partnership with universities and all of those things. Now, the most important thing I want to indicate is that when you are a South African company, either in any sector of the economy, what is important, is to ensure that there is that level of saying that I am South African, I am South Africa, I am from South Africa. I should be able to portray and project things that happen in South Africa in a manner that it reflects who we are as a nation. Because all of these things, remember, they touch on the brand of the country, whether people are going to invest and all of those things and so on. Now, in doing so, the Constitution of the Republic guarantees that there's 11 official languages. Are we seeing the diversity and plurality of voices in that space, or are we still in a point where certain language groups are dominant in that space? So the media should be able to go to a level where all 11 official languages are represented, and also in the fact that, for example, you look at one newspaper titles, for example. So they will have one title, one what do you call headline?
Yes.
All of them. Does that represent plurality? So in our view, actually, and I think what I indicate is that it's just a reflection of the quality of journalism that is there. I don't know whether it is a fact that probably, in my profession, I would say there's collusion and so on. You can't be 4 different titles and have one story and the headline. Same probably language in there. So we need to be able to say, if this one is saying this is the story, you must be able to say this is the angle that you're going to be covering it, so that you can bring South Africans opportunity to look at totality of the issue and the problem and so on. So having one story in all of them, you better just one buy newspaper. So in a way, ownership of the media, as you say, has to do not only with the shareholding that we have, but it must be translated into meaningful contribution towards decision making. And so on, but also ensuring that you are able to advance that which you believe in as a title, for example, so in a way. So we are looking at all of those things so that we can be able to say, how then do we package all of these things, and also ensure that these papers have got access to the townships, to the rural areas, and so on. Because in a way, me and you were here in Gauteng.
DG.
So, yes.
Look, before I let you go, I need you to elaborate
Yes.
on what you mean the department means when they say that some publications actually report in a racist tone. Please elaborate further on that for us.
On what? Can you repeat the question?
Please elaborate on what the department means when you say that some publications report in a racist kind of tone.
So I'm not aware of that statement, but I think the point that we are saying is that South Africa, as guaranteed by the Constitution, belongs to all who live in it. I think that is very clear, and I think the manner in which we should report in a more responsible way, in a more balanced way on your own stories. If there are wrongs which have been done, they are wrong. They must be reported, and we're not saying that you must not report on all of those things. So I think, as we do that, we must always ensure that there is that responsibility on the papers, on the part of the papers, that ensures that they contribute towards nation building and building social cohesion in the country. And all of the things that are not assisting us to build that rainbow nation should not form part of the things that we must report on all the time. And so this is, I think, the point that we're trying to say.
Okay. Nompumelelo, what do you have to say on that one, very quickly?
I think there are different interpretations about what nation building means, on the part of the media. Should the media not report negative stories about the government because it may be detrimental to nation building, for instance? So there's always going to be this debate about what is in the public interest and what isn't in the public interest.
Yes.
Exactly. And so we've seen this debate and this argument between the independent media especially and government, saying, government is always being shown in a negative light.
Yeah.
There are positive things also that government is doing. So and the print media will then argue, but we have responsibility to be a watchdog, in society.
He spoke about the quality of journalism.
There's going to be this difference of interpretation. And the other thing he spoke about was the issue of supply and demand.
Yeah.
Now, for a lot of papers, they will put on the front page what they have seen after looking at, statistics or whatever, which front pages sell better, and they will stick to that formula as far as possible so that they can sell more papers. And sometimes, unfortunately, controversy and those so-called negative stories sell more than the more positive stories, so to speak. So this question of balance will always be subjective on the part of print media as well as the state, because each one is trying to communicate something, and government always is trying to communicate a better image of itself, obviously, to society. But at the same time, time, the media feels it has a responsibility not just to be the mouthpiece of government, but to also be critical and all of that. So
and keep the balance.
And keep the balance.
DG, your final words. I know we've run out of time completely now.
No, thank you so much. I hope we've more time, and I think it's a very important subject.
Absolutely.
And I think from our side we are saying we have started this process, and I think we're inviting all stakeholders to work with us on this journey and be able to agree to disagree, so that we can be able to say this is the way we want to go as a country. Remember, as government, ours is to ensure that we listen to all parts of the society, and be able to say this is the policy position that we are taking, in a manner that benefits South Africans. Thank you so much.
DG, thank you so much. You did say when I pronounce your name must be soft. That was the Director General at the Department of Communications, Mr. Ndebuo Norman Mudelele. We're going to take a quick ad break. We're back with more Media Monitor. Do stay with us.
Thank you.
The cotton field story is being told through patchwork by artists to celebrate the diaspora in America.
Vitally important in telling the stories of what is happening in the refugee crisis, with migration, with questions of immigration, and I believe I, as an artist, have a moral obligation to tell these stories.
It's through paper, brush, and paint that the different faces of women are reflected by this prolific painter.
Women face a lot of challenges, discrimination, sexism, and a lot of other negative. In my paintings, I try to send a different message.
Place of the G-Men and Father Huddleston's mission. Place of Balansky's and the Odin cinema, and let's never forget.
Join the Freeway for that 1 hour weekly dose of arts and entertainment news every Saturday at 12.
Back with Media Monitor now. A story that hogged all media platforms this week is the ongoing standoff between the Hawks and Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan. Gordhan was summoned for questioning sessions by the Hawks, of which he didn't attend, stating he is under no legal obligation to do so.
In response to my attorney's inquiry that I am not a suspect in the Hawks investigation. 2, I have provided a comprehensive account of matters which the Hawks has raised in their 27 questions on the 18th of May 2016. 3, I am advised by my legal team that the assertions of law made by the Hawks in their letter of 21 August 2016 are wholly unfounded on any version of the facts. There are 2 matters raised by the Hawks, and these are contraventions of the National Strategic Intelligence Act, as well as certain sections of the Public Finance Management Act. These alleged contraventions are dealt with in detail in my attorney's letter. Suffice it to say, they advise that the alleged charges are wholly unfounded.
Nompumelelo, we just spoke about balance reporting. Now, what is your total overview of how the media has handled this ongoing debacle between the Hawks and the Finance Minister?
Well, obviously, what we've heard in the media is a lot of intrigue, obviously, about, the narrative of the fight between the Finance Minister and the President, the disagreement over how to manage and handle certain parastatals, SAA being the top one, the nuclear deal, etc. So all of these have been brought in to create this narrative that there is a witch hunt against Pravin Gordhan. But the problem is that we are not getting enough information from the Hawks themselves. They're not being quite, overt and straightforward. So it leaves a lot of room for this, speculation and analysts coming in and giving their perspectives and views on this thing. And obviously, because it's an investigation, the Hawks will say we don't have, to tell you anything because we're busy investigating this thing. But they've allowed things to leak to the media, etc. So I don't think that the media per se is to blame for what we are seeing now. It's the lack of information that we're seeing. The other thing that's quite interesting is that the Hawks are not very clear about whether or not Pravin Gordhan is a suspect, whether or not he's going to be charged or not charged. And obviously, the minister himself has chosen to ventilate this thing publicly as well, so as to keep himself safe as well, so that people know where he stands and what he is about and what his perception of the situation is. So I think the media is going with what is out there and is trying to use various means to fill the gaps. And until we know from the Hawks, we won't know, the reality of the situation. We can only go by what legal experts are saying currently, what political analysts such as ourselves are saying currently. And until the Hawks come out, and NPA boss Sean Abrams, who has now received the docket from the Hawks, comes out and says what the real situation is, whether or not Pravin Gordhan is going to be charged. Until that happens, there's going to be speculation. There are going to be all sorts of rumors and stories coming out around this thing. The president himself last week only came out last week once again to reiterate strongly now his support for the minister. But beyond that, he hasn't shown a sense that he is perturbed by this kind of circumstance between the Hawks, Minister of Finance, and what's going on with the economy as well. So all of that leaves room for lots of rumor mongering and all of that. So we need to get clarity from the state side, from the NPA side, to get a sense of really what's going on in the situation.
Let's find out. Mom Precious is a political analyst, and I hear you're saying there that it leaves room for analysts to come in and pitch in there with what they deem could be the missing links. Mom Precious, what are your thoughts then around this whole matter, particularly around the political theories that have characterized this investigation?
Alicia, I agree with Unompumelelo Uguti. We cannot blame the media in this case because the Hawks themselves have not come out clearly as to what they want from Pravin Gordhan. But all I can say from an economic point of view is that what is happening between the Hawks and Pravin Gordhan smacks badly for economics because it leaves a lot of speculations. And when we speculate, we are creating an uncertainty in the economy. The worst thing in the economy is uncertainty. When there's uncertainty in the economy, the markets will respond in that way. So this is a very, very bad thing that is happening. And also the leaks from the Hawks, as Nompomelo is saying, this little bit leaks, that little bit leaks, then we have to make interpretations of our own from the little bits that we get. And again, it is uncommon for a person who's going to be arrested to be called to report to a police station or whatever. What should have happened, maybe the Hawks should have gone to Pravin themselves immediately and talk to him without leaking a letter that they are going to send to him. I think that was badly handled. I think what is happening here, the Hawks are also politicking about this, and Pravin Gordhan as well is politicking about it. And when they both do that, that's bad for the economy. You will recall, Alicia, that Pravin Gordhan zigzagged the world trying to convince the rating agencies not to downgrade South Africa. If then anything happens to Pravin Gordhan, and as we speak now, the rating agencies are awaiting the outcome of this Hawks-Gordhan relationship. Gordhan zigzagged the world to convince the world, or the rating agencies rather, not to downgrade South Africa further to junk status. As we speak now, we are one level above junk. If we are downgraded and we go to junk status, that is bad for all of us, including the Hawks. And also, one of the things that were stated clearly by the rating agencies when they kept the rating unchanged in June, they were worried about the heightened political tension because that heightened political tension is going to take away the attention of government on policy matters to dealing with the issues like the Hawks and the Gordhan's issue. I think the Hawks have not handled this matter in a manner in which it will save the country. Look, Gordhan is a man who is keeping the keys of the purse of this country. So when you deal with him, you have to deal with him in that manner, knowing what will happen to the whole country. As I mentioned earlier, Alicia, if we are downgraded to junk status, it means a lot of things for this economy. Our loans will be more expensive. No one would want to invest in this country. Our imports will be expensive because our rand will depreciate. All those kinds of things will happen. I think this matter has not been handled very correctly.
But ladies, I mean, with that in mind, I mean, we know that the minister has come out so many times saying that he knows that he's not guilty. Don't you think then it would be of public interest just for him to avail himself for these Hawk sessions, the questioning sessions?
Well, he has no legal obligation to avail himself for the questions. The minister didn't take the decision lightly. He took it on legal advice.
Absolutely.
And there are many legal, I'm not a legal expert, but I've read some experts like Pierre de Vos who have outlined the reasons why the minister does not have an obligation to appear before the Hawks. Number one, he has responded to the 27 questions which they sent to him. Secondly, when his attorney sent through a letter to the Hawks asking whether or not the minister is a suspect, the Hawks said no, the minister is not a suspect. Remember the Minister of Police in a media briefing confirmed the fact that the minister is not a suspect in the investigation. So if there are charges for the minister to answer, just like any other person when charged, the charges are put before you, and if arrest is required, then arrest should be made, you know, so that this thing is processed as quickly as possible, and like was said about the certainty. Certainty is very important.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What we don't need is this dilly-dallying. So if there are charges, let them be put to the minister and let the minister have his day in court. What we have right now is that there are no charges placed before him.
Yep.
There are these spurious things about he may have, you know, gone against certain, you know, acts, for instance, the PFMA and National Security Acts and Corruption Act. But that is not clear until charges are placed before him and he's able to answer them. Right now, there's nothing for him to answer. So those who say, no, why doesn't the minister just, you know, humor the Hawks? He'd just be humoring the Hawks, really, you know. So they've now, if they've taken the docket to the NPA boss, John Abrams, is the one dealing with this issue. He will then sit and decide and say, yes, now the minister has charges. We will, you know, go ahead and charge him, and then he will have an obligation to answer the charges. Right now, he doesn't.
Mom Precious, shouldn't he humor the Hawks? Surely he has more important things that he has to do as the man that keeps the purse of the country.
I think he did say that, let me do my work. But I think the Hawks must do the right thing themselves and avoid any kinds of speculations. As I said earlier, speculations are extremely dangerous. Because if there's a case to answer, let this matter be dealt with quickly so that we get done with it. As we speak now, the minister has responded to the 27 questions that were sent to him in February. And also after those questions, we did not hear anything. So that is why I think the Hawks also have not dealt with this matter in a manner in which would save South Africa and in a manner in which would limit any kind of speculations. We're still going to speculate until the Hawks tell us exactly what is happening. But at that time, in the meantime, the economy will be suffering. You will recall that the rand depreciated immediately in 24 hours after the letter was leaked that Pravin Gordhan has been summoned to the Hawks office.
Yeah.
He must report there at 2 o'clock. And the following morning around 9 o'clock, the previous afternoon, the rand was around 13 rand 52 cents, and the following morning it was around 14 rand 16 cents, which means that this is serious for the economy. It should be taken seriously. Even the president, when the president said in the last few days he's supporting Gordhan fully, we don't know what that means. That needs to be put into practice, and we need to avoid any speculations, because if you use some big statements like those and we don't know what they mean, we are fully behind you and we are not fully behind you. And I'm not I'm not a politician, but I don't know what the president should be doing as the head of the country when things like this happen, because there is a view that he cannot intervene. In other words, we can die before the president intervenes. I don't know. But I think the hawks themselves must deal with this thing professionally and quickly to avoid any speculations. Because when there are I'm entitled to my view, and everybody else is entitled to the view. And there will be so many views to a point where we are while we do those speculations, we are downgraded. That is my worry from an economic point of view. And downgrade is not good for all of us. Even if you own a business or you don't own a business, but you don't want downgrade. Because for consumers, for example, when we are downgraded to junk status, when our imports are expensive, it means there will be an increase in prices. We import oil from other countries, and that petrol price will be higher than it is now. And everything else, there will be a ripple effect in the economy, Alicia. That's all I can say.
All right, let's take a look at some of the views on Twitter on what you are saying about this matter. Andre De Beer says, something fishy going on in the week. Gordhan was saying the Guptas are attacking him. Now they are selling all their business interests. Jackie van Veek says, Gordhan, are you above the law? Why not represent your innocence? And Mpokwane says, interesting, #DA runs JNB, #Gordhan does not attend the Hawks meeting. 2 days later, the Guptas sell their shareholdings in South Africa. Last one on this topic, Sublime Comp says, asking the head of an organization which had an illegal unit operating within is not an indication of political interference. #Gordhan, a very quick one on that.
Yeah, I think, like we said, these prove the speculation, around this issue.
Right.
And until we have clarity from the Hawks, from the NPA, what the real deal is, we'll have a lot of this. I just want to add as well, it's not only just the rating agencies we should be worried about. This situation is fueling or delegitimizing state institutions in the eyes of citizenry. Yeah. And what we're seeing is that the perception that state institutions are used for political ends is being strengthened by the ongoing speculation. And more South Africans are going to lose faith in government, lose faith in institutions. And, Peter Vos asked something very interesting in his blog to say, what happens when it's one of us whom the state institutions are used against? Yeah. What recourse do we have if a minister can be treated in this way, for instance? So I think it's something that we really need to be concerned about as citizens, like what was said about, it's not just people who own businesses, who should be worried about this. We should all be worried about what's going on here.
All right, that's where we leave it on the Gordhan matter. We're going to take another quick ad break, and after that, we're back with more. Do stay with us.
No, they haven't.
Do you know why?
Well, we wouldn't know. Firstly, we'll ask.
I can tell you.
Why?
They say you're selling out.
Why?
Well, I guess that's a question you need to engage them.
Why would the African Union try and separate human rights and women's rights?
Women's rights are indeed human rights.
So we need to be asking ourselves, what kind of society are we? What kind of family structures do we have where parents, where fathers turn on their daughters.
If a policeman, is seen to be accessing psychological services, couldn't that be seen as a sign of weakness?
People are waiting for somebody to discover them.
Absolutely.
And that's not everybody's story, am I right? I mean, there's so many of us who can be the best and stars, but you can't sit there and wait for somebody to say, I think what you're doing is great.
Which are so different to his past.
I really wish I could say thanks to him. And mind you, I'm the man. I make coffee and I'm proud of it.
For your daily dose of current affairs, tune in to the SABC News Channel.
With Media Monitor, let's now cross live to our reporter Aldrin Sampier, who is in Tirana, and he's covering the funeral of the ANC councillor who died during the Johannesburg mayoral appointment proceedings on Monday. Aldrin, good morning to you. Do tell us what has happened so far at the proceedings.
Well, yes, good morning, Alicia. Yes, the funeral service is currently underway, and we can confirm that the chairperson of the ANC in Gauteng, that's Paul Mashatile, is expected to address the mourners here, as well as Park Stow, who is the chairperson of the ANC in the Joburg region. And what we should understand is that Park Stow was amongst the 270 councillors in the city of Joburg when that council sitting took place, when that inaugural sitting took place. And of course, Stompy, as she's known, passed on. I was there as well. She collapsed, stopped breathing, struggled to breathe. They tried to resuscitate her. Unfortunately, she couldn't breathe and she lost her life. But quite interesting though is the symbolism that has been drawn from it is that what Stompy decided, as they say, as some of her comrades say, is that she wanted to make sure that Park Stow gets re-elected as the mayor of the city of Johannesburg, and of course that didn't happen. She didn't even get an opportunity to make a cross on the ballot paper. She only got to vote when the speaker was elected, and of course we know that it was a DA speaker that was elected. She didn't get to make a mark when the mayors were elected, where the mayor was elected, or even when the chief of staff was elected. I just heard earlier on from a ward councillor who was speaking to the mourners as well, saying that actually a day before that meeting, which is 7 days ago, she said to him that she will not sit in a council where the opposition at that time, which was the DA, where the DA will be leading. And of course that has happened, and she probably succumbed to the pressures as well. And something else that a friend mentioned, which was something that was mentioned during the memorial service as well, is when the ANC lost the city of Tshwane, she also cried hysterically, or the description that was used here was that she cried terribly, that she had to be hospitalized because of that. And the conversation that she had with a friend, she asked the friend, do you think that we will lose the city of Joburg as well? And of course now we know that that has happened. But quite important as well, I think that this is a period for the ANC to start doing what they call reflection and stop the talking and actually do that reflection. Why is it that members of the public, why is it that ANC supporters didn't come out in their numbers to ensure that the ANC is re-elected? We know that the statement from the ANC's NEC has been that many people didn't come up to vote. One of the reasons that was given was because of the weather. But beyond that, the ANC really needs to find how does it make sure that those people come out in their numbers and vote for the party. We know from the ANC's NEC as well, and Gwede Mantashe also mentioned this during the funeral of the former minister Stofile, saying that they will be going house to house to re-energize its support base, its support base on the ground, and make sure that members and supporters find that there is indeed hope within the ANC, and whether or not that will work is something that we will have to wait and see. And speaking about the former minister Stofile's funeral, is that we saw what happened there. The story that came out of that funeral was a call for the ANC to go into an early elective conference. You know that the ANC's elective conference is set to take place in 2017, but of course Pityana has called on that elective conference to be made earlier, which was a call made by the ANC Youth League. and one will have to wait and see whether something like this, a call around that would be something that happens here, or that call will be made at this funeral as well. We'll have to wait and see when Paul Mashatile as well as Park Stow take to the podium, as well as the various other ANC councillors who will be speaking on the life of the councillor, Stompie, who's better known also here as a Black Diamond. And just looking at one of the posters that was up here, the poster read, a life dedicated to the movement till the end. And that's indeed what these comrades of Stompie are saying, that she was dedicated to the movement right up until the end.
You know, speaking of dedication, just a quick one there, Aldrin. I mean, in terms of honoring her legacy, has there been any word from the ruling party in terms of how they will preserve this?
Well, there hasn't been a word around how do you preserve the legacy of Stompie. But during the memorial service, what was emphasized there was the issue around making sure that members and supporters of the ANC are dedicated to the movement. And of course, as we've been indicating, that indeed Stompie was dedicated to the movement. And quite interestingly, I just wanted to read something here from the obituary, which is quite telling. It says, "We shall miss her dedication and love for the movement, the people and the country, as we lick our self-inflicted wounds." That is quite telling. The ANC, this obituary says that as the party licks its self-inflicted wounds. So it means that the party is taking responsibility for the loss at the polls, and definitely it's time to, as I said earlier on, for that reflection as to how do you make sure that members and supporters of the party still have hope within the party. Will those door-to-door campaigns, will it be enough when Gwede Mantashe crisscrosses the country and go into those various houses to re-energize members and supporters of the party?
Aldrin Sampear, thank you so much. We'll definitely have more for you on those funeral proceedings in the bulletin that's coming up after this. That is AM News. But speaking of, councillors and council sittings, the last Metro coalitions were formed this week and mayors were consequently appointed. The DA's Herman Mashaba emerged as the new mayor of the city of Johannesburg amid a disruptive session. Ekurhuleni is the only metro in Gauteng that is under the ANC, and Mzwandile Masina was appointed as its mayor. And lastly, the ANC's Zandile Gumede was appointed as the mayor of the eThekwini municipality. Mom Precious, a very quick one on this one. Your overall views.
I can't hear you, Alicia.
Your very quick overview on the latest appointments and what transpired during the mayoral elections this week.
Well, Alicia, as a person who was in the national office in during the election time, I was not surprised by the votes of the mayors, because I was part of the election analysis at the time. I don't think there was a surprise for anybody. You can be surprised, of course, if you hoped something different will happen, because the EFF, for example, did say clearly that they will not vote with the ANC, they will vote with the DA, but they're not going to go to a coalition with the DA. They're not going to a coalition with anybody, but they will vote with the DA. In fact, one of their senior members said, there are two devils in this country, the ANC and the DA, but we will vote for, the DA is a better devil, so we shall vote with the DA. I think there was no surprise at that time. However, it's a change that has been coming for a while. If the ANC didn't see it, maybe it will be dangerous.
Thank you so much.
I think the ANC is in trouble.
Thank you so much, Mom Precious. Luca in our Durban studios. A very quick one. I mean, what does the EFF mean when they're saying we're not going into coalitions, but we have an arrangement with these parties? It's been very confusing for the non-political people out there.
I think there are two things here. The first thing is that a coalition puts you into a contract, right, for 5 years, and you'll get positions, and therefore that makes you part of that government of that municipality. So when that municipality doesn't deliver, you have also not delivered. But doesn't voting
with them automatically make them?
I'm going to get to the second point. The second point is that when the AFF says we will vote with the DA on this specific matter, so the AFF wants to take it case by case. They don't want to be locked into a coalition deal where they have to agree on a program. but on a case-by-case basis, they will decide whether or not they will support the DA.
It's 5-2. It's time for us to leave. Thank you so much for joining us. Nompumelelo Runji, she was here in our Johannesburg studios, and Umar Precious Lukain in our Durban studios. And thank you at home for choosing Media Monitor today. We hope you do join us again next week, same time and place. That is right here on the SABC News channel. I'm Alicia Jali. Do have a blessed Sunday further. Goodbye.